Dear viewers, today we present to you a story that will leave you speechless and make you question everything you believe about love and destiny. It revolves around a struggling young black man from Detroit who married an 85-year-old wealthy African-American businesswoman. Just 7 days after their courthouse wedding, when he arrived at her mansion in Beverly Hills to fulfill their marital obligations, what he discovered was beyond imagination. The way this elderly woman moved, her glowing skin, and her vibrant energy made her appear no different from a 20-year-old college student. But the real shock came when Jamal made a decision that nobody saw coming. Jamal Washington was a 25-year-old man carrying the weight of his entire family on his shoulders after his father's sudden death from COVID-19 complications, which devastated many black families across America. Overnight, his whole family became dependent on him. His mother, Gloria, was battling diabetes and high blood pressure conditions that disproportionately affect the black community, and all their savings had been drained, paying for her expensive medications and frequent ER visits. His younger sister, Kesha, was in her senior year at Howard University, and her tuition fees, textbooks, and living expenses had become an unbearable burden. At just 25 years old, life had aged him beyond his years. The stress lines on his face and the constant worry in his eyes showed a man who had been forced to grow up too fast. Day and night, Jamal worked multiple jobs, driving for DoorDash and Uber during the day, working security at a downtown Detroit office building at night, and doing weekend construction work just to keep his family afloat. The weight of responsibility had stolen his youth, and debt collectors from various payday loan companies constantly called his phone, sometimes threatening legal action if payments weren't made immediately. One scorching summer afternoon in downtown Detroit, Jamal stopped at a soul food restaurant to buy some fried chicken and mac and cheese, one of the few affordable meals he could manage. As he counted the crumpled dollar bills in his wallet, calculating if he had enough for a proper meal, his eyes met those of a woman sitting in a black Rolls-Royce Phantom, staring at him intently through the tinted windows. This was no ordinary woman. Her name was Mrs. Dorothy Williams, a legend in the business world of America. Her empire spanned real estate, technology, entertainment, and logistics across the United States and internationally. Her expensive designer clothing, heavy diamond jewelry, and commanding presence immediately caught Jamal's attention. The way other customers, and even the restaurant owner, bowed respectfully when they noticed her car told him everything he needed to know about her status. Mrs. Dorothy stepped out of her vehicle, her chauffeur quickly opening the door. Despite being 85 years old, she moved with surprising grace and authority. She approached Jamal with a knowing smile and asked in a refined voice that carried traces of Southern roots, "You are Jamal Washington, aren't you?" Jamal was stunned. He replied hesitantly, "Yes, ma'am, that's me. But how do you know my name?" She studied him for a moment, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. "I know everything about your situation, young man. I know about your mother's medical bills, your sister's Howard University tuition, and the debts that are drowning your family. I know you work 3 jobs and haven't had a proper night's sleep in months." Jamal's heart began racing. "Ma'am, who are you? How do you know so much about my personal life?" Mrs. Dorothy smiled mysteriously. "If you want, I can change your destiny completely. There is only one condition. You must marry me." The words hit Jamal like a lightning bolt. The busy Detroit streets seemed to go silent around him. "Ma'am, what did you just say? You want me to marry you?" "This is not a joke, young man," she said calmly, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making multi-million-dollar decisions. "This is a serious business proposal. If you agree to marry me, I will personally handle your mother's medical treatment at the best private hospitals in the country. I will pay your sister's remaining Howard tuition and ensure she gets a prestigious job after graduation. I will clear all your family debts and give you a life of comfort you have never imagined." Jamal felt dizzy. The Detroit summer heat seemed to intensify. "Ma'am, what would I have to do in return?" "Simple." Dorothy replied immediately. "Marry me. According to legal standards, there will be proper documentation, everything legitimate and binding. After marriage, you will have your freedom to live as you choose, but there are certain conditions you must follow." Her words sounded too good to be true, but the desperation of Jamal's situation made him listen carefully. Without another word, Mrs. Dorothy handed him an elegant business card with gold lettering and walked back to her Rolls Royce as her convoy of 3 luxury cars disappeared into Detroit traffic. Jamal stood there holding the card, wondering if he had just experienced a miracle or stumbled into a trap. Days passed, but the pressure from creditors intensified. One evening, loan sharks came to their small apartment in Detroit's East Side, threatening to seize their few belongings if payment wasn't made within 48 hours. His mother's condition worsened, and the hospital refused to continue treatment without immediate payment. His sister called, crying that she might be suspended from Howard for unpaid fees. That night, Jamal made his decision. He called the number on Mrs. Dorothy's card. Within 2 days, everything was arranged. The legal marriage ceremony took place at the Los Angeles County Courthouse, with prominent politicians, entertainment moguls, and business leaders in attendance. The documentation was completed with proper witnesses and legal representation. For the first time in his life, Jamal stepped into a world of unimaginable luxury. The Beverly Hills mansion was an architectural masterpiece: marble floors imported from Italy, crystal chandeliers from Europe, artwork worth millions of dollars, and staff who moved like shadows, anticipating every need. The estate was so large it had its own security gate, guest houses, and quarters for domestic staff. The household staff, mostly young, beautiful women from various backgrounds, treated Mrs. Dorothy with reverence bordering on fear. Even the most senior staff members, some who had worked for her for over 20 years, still addressed her as Mrs. Williams and never made direct eye contact unless spoken to first. Jamal noticed that when these women spoke to him, they kept their responses brief and formal, as if afraid that any friendliness might offend their employer. As the days passed, Jamal began to notice strange things about the mansion. On the second floor, there was a heavy oak door with multiple electronic locks that was always sealed. Private security personnel were positioned near that area 24/7, and whenever Jamal asked about it, the staff would simply say, "Mr. Washington, that area is restricted to Mrs. Williams only." The relationship between Jamal and Mrs. Dorothy was cordial but distant. She was often busy managing her business empire, taking calls from Wall Street, London, and Tokyo, flying in private jets to board meetings across the country. When they did interact, conversations were formal and brief. She would inquire about his comfort and well-being, but they never discussed personal matters or attempted to know each other on a deeper level. Every evening, they would dine together in the grand dining room, served by silent staff on expensive china. Neither of them ever initiated personal conversations. It felt like two strangers sharing space, rather than a married couple. Mrs. Dorothy would often watch Jamal during these meals, her eyes holding secrets he couldn't decipher. One night, as Jamal walked through the mansion's corridors, he noticed lights coming from Mrs. Dorothy's private wing, an area of the house where no one else was permitted. Curiosity overtook caution, and he moved closer. Through a slightly open window, he could hear Mrs. Dorothy speaking to someone on the phone, her voice filled with emotion he had never heard before. The conversation was intense, almost argumentative, but he couldn't make out the words clearly. What disturbed him most was the tone. It wasn't the voice of an 85-year-old woman, but someone much younger, filled with passion and energy. His heart began pounding as questions flooded his mind. Who was she talking to at this hour? What secrets was she hiding? Was this marriage really what it seemed? Standing there in the darkness, Jamal realized that everything about his situation felt orchestrated, planned the way she had known so much about his personal life, the timing of their meeting, the immediate solutions to all his problems. It was all too convenient, too perfect. That night, he made a decision. He would find a way into that locked room and discover the truth, no matter the consequences. His opportunity came through Aisha, Mrs. Dorothy's personal assistant, a stunning 24-year-old woman from Atlanta who had worked for the family for 3 years. Unlike the other staff, Aisha seemed more approachable, and Jamal sensed she might have answers to his questions. One evening, Jamal approached Aisha as she was organizing documents in the study. "Aisha, I need to ask you something important. I want to spend time with my wife privately, but I don't know the proper protocol in this house." Aisha looked surprised but pleased. "Mr. Washington, Mrs. Williams has been waiting for you to make this request. She speaks about you often when you're not around. She will be very happy. Can you arrange for me to visit her private quarters tonight?" Aisha's face lit up. I will ask her immediately, sir. Within minutes, Isha returned with permission. Mrs. Williams says you should come to her room at 10 p.m. She is very excited, sir. That evening, Jamal prepared himself mentally. If he was going to uncover the truth about Mrs. Dorothy and this mysterious marriage, tonight would be his chance. He approached her door with a mixture of nervousness and determination. When Mrs. Dorothy opened the door, Jamal was shocked by her appearance. Gone was the formal businesswoman he had known. She stood before him, wearing elegant silk loungewear, her skin glowing with a radiance that seemed impossible for someone her age. Her movements were fluid, graceful, almost youthful. The transformation was so dramatic, he questioned whether this was the same 85-year-old woman he had married. "Jamal, my dear," she said, her voice softer and more melodious than he had ever heard it. "I have been hoping for this moment since our wedding day." The room was filled with the scent of expensive perfumes and candles, soft jazz music played in the background, and the lighting created an intimate atmosphere that made the space feel magical rather than intimidating. Excited for part 2? Then make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us which country you're watching from. Your support means a lot.